Good evening, ma'am. With your permission, may I begin the session?
Sure, please.
Okay, so good evening, everyone. I am Navjot Kaur, the host of today's session. I, on behalf of the whole team of Just Corpus, welcome you all in today's session on how to crack interviews in law firms and corporates. Before we delve into today's discussion, let me provide a brief introduction of Just Corpus and the eminent guest speaker of the day. So, let me introduce the Just Corpus. Just Corpus is a body of legal professionals who have come together to bring various aspects and chains of law under a single umbrella. Just Corpus, an edutech platform set up in 2020, has a wide reach of 600K clicks per month on an average basis on our website www.justcorpus.com. The inspiration was derived from ever-growing need for law students. Just Corpus has also incorporated an interdisciplinary journal and a multidisciplinary journal as its subsidiaries, named as the Just Corpus Law Journal and the International Journal of Law Research, Education and Social Sciences. Now, turning our attention to today's focal point, we are privileged to have Ms. Aashna Jain ma'am as our esteemed guest speaker. Ms. Aashna Jain ma'am, career strategist for lawyers and students. Ms. Aashna Jain is a distinguished legal career coach and a mentor widely recognized for guiding law students and young professionals in building successful careers. An alumna of National Law University Jodhpur, she began her professional journey as an associate with leading law firms including Shardul, Amarchand, Mangaldas, and Dua Associates, gaining valuable experience in corporate and dispute resolution practice. Leveraging her deep understanding of law firm recruitment and career development, Aashna Jain ma'am transitioned into mentoring and has since guided over 1,000 students, helping them secure internships, campus placements, and pre-placement offers in top-tier firms. She specializes in career strategy, resume and cover letter drafting, interview preparation, and LinkedIn profile building, with a strong focus on corporate law, arbitration, insolvency, and real estate law. Through her platform Career Solutions by Aashna Jain, she has become a trusted name in legal career coaching with a wide social media presence and a proven record of impactful mentorship. Her sessions are designed to equip aspiring lawyers with practical insights and actionable strategies, bridging the gap between academic learning and professional success. Without further ado, I would like to hand over the floor to ma'am for her insights on the topic.
Sure. Thank you so much, Navjot. That was such a elaborate introduction to me. Thank you so much. I'm flattered. But yes, I think let's begin with the session today. I have been associated with Just Corpus since I think many years. I don't even remember. I think the first time that I interacted with them was in 2020 for yet another workshop that I had organized back then for resume drafting and other allied skills. So it's an honor, it's a privilege to come back to this platform again, and to be in constant touch with the founder, Mr. Ayush. So that has also been a privilege point for me. So I hope all of you keep submitting your papers and blogs to Just Corpus and the allied journals that they have. Now, pivoting our attention to today's session, which is on how to crack legal interviews with law firms and companies. See, why we are having this session on a Tuesday evening is because a lot of people, would still end up going and saying that, oh, I want to join your law firm because, I want to have the salary that you give, or yeah, I would want to go for higher education after my college ends and I may want to leave your organization. So I think these blunders people keep committing through the years. Since I was an intern myself, I have committed these blunders, and even now when I see other interns and associates, and even lateral hiring senior associates, principal associates giving interviews, they still keep committing these blunders. So I thought, why not curate a session around that and discuss with all of you the nuances of how an interview happens in a law firm or even in a company. Let's understand the parameters for it. I wouldn't want to stretch it to an hour or so. I would like to keep it really short to like 30 minutes session so that you have points with precision noted down and we can then proceed further, right? So with that said, let's see what are the types and categories of questions that are asked. There are three types. First is the HR questions or the behavioral questions, which tackle, your likes, dislikes, and like what are your strengths, weaknesses, why do you want to join the organization, or like what are your priorities in life. So anything which is in terms of an information about you where it feels to the employer that you're going to leave the organization because of that information will lead you to rejection. So for example, let's say if you talk about any illness that you have, or you talk about a family member who's not keeping really well and that you have to tend to them on a very very regular basis, or for instance you have plans of moving abroad, or let's say you want to go outside and study, or there is some inclination in your answers wherein you just it feels like that you want to quit law altogether. All of these factors can lead you to rejection, and HR and behavioral questions are actually designed to understand that aspect from you. Towards the end, I'm going to be answering a few most frequently asked questions as well, but this is the perspective with which HR and behavioral questions are asked. Second is the technical questions. Technical questions are definitely, they form 80 to 90% of the questions that are asked in the interview. And these questions are from the CV, beyond the CV, pertaining to the law and the area for which you are applying for. And last would be the awareness related questions. Now, awareness related questions are very interesting. They just check your general knowledge on things happening in the country and even otherwise on, I would say, just general updates in the area of law for which you're applying for. So now I remember one time I sat for an interview with a law firm and I actually got rejected with them. It's a tier one law firm. I got rejected in their interview because they'd asked me a commercial awareness question pertaining to that, they asked me that, okay, can you discuss the constitutional validity of demonetization? So I knew what is demonetization, but I did not know the constitutional validity, for the same, and for which, when I came back out of the interview room, I talked to my mentor at that time. She told me, yeah, it was your responsibility to actually study about the issues that are happening in the country and to have a legal perspective on those issues. So you should not be shell shocked if today somebody in an interview asks you questions around India UK free trade agreement or Trump's tariff bans, etc. Any issues that are coming up in the country at this point in time, as a citizen of the country, you need to be aware of those issues. Not just the issues in the country, but issues pertaining to your subject matter. So let's say if you're sitting for a corporate laws interview, anything pertaining to latest transactions or amendments, notifications in the subject matter should be covered by you. So with that said, let's move ahead to understand first HR questions. Now, who asks these questions? People usually have this confusion that, okay, I'm not going to have any HR around. Why should I study for HR questions? But the simple and plain answer is that HR is just behavioral questions at the end of the day. So it's not necessarily always that the HR is going to ask you these questions. So I remember sitting for Cyril Amarchand's interview, wherein the HR was sitting with the partner, but I remember also sitting for Sam's interview and Trilegal's interview, where only the partners were sitting there and they asked me all the HR questions along with the technical questions. So it's not like a straight jacket way that, or like there's no straight jacket formula to understand that who's going to ask you. It could be either the HR or the partner, and you can actually get eliminated because of HR questions as well. So let's say if you say points like that, I want to join your organization because of the salary that you offer, and like any other such inappropriate things, of course you can easily get eliminated. They're just trying to see how well you can gel, with the culture of the organization. And this always a separate round? Not necessarily. This is not always a separate round. These questions can be clubbed with the technical questions as well. However, for I would say interviews in leading law firms, they may sometimes have a separate round just to check from a PPO perspective that how culturally aligned you are to the organization. And for that purpose, they can always have a separate round as well. So with that said, and can it be skipped by some law firms and chambers? Yes, definitely. At the lateral level, let's say if you have 4 5 years 6 years of work experience, at that point, yes, it can be skipped by a few law firms, because by then you're very culturally ingrained within the systemic idea of how to work in a law firm. So yes, it can definitely be skipped. But at a very, very later stage, for anybody who's attending the session and who's a student or who's an early young professional in the industry, it cannot be skipped, from your account. Now, HR questions also allow you to set the tone of the interview. Setting the tone means that how well the interview starts, right? Now, I remember in one of my interviews, it started off really badly. So to say that I was so flustered in the interview that I had to stop the interview myself and ask them for permission to drink water and all. So obviously, it brought down, the entire tone of the interview that I was sitting for, and I obviously knew that I may not actually get selected finally. So it really matters how your interview starts, and the tone can usually be set right in the beginning. So you should just feel comfortable, and it's on you how you feel comfortable by answering a few questions correctly. Uh, for yourself. So let's see what are the two ways in which you can set the tone properly. The first way is the icebreaker questions. Now, if somebody asks you that, please introduce yourself. So, and you go on to say, oh, I've achieved this in life, I've done that in life, I have so many followers, I've done this, I've done that. They are not going to like be very interested, because they can already see all of that information on your resume, right? So make sure you're actually asking things, or like actually answering things in a manner that sort of make you look like an interesting person and sort of makes you stand out as well. So for instance, when somebody used to ask me, even as on date, let's say honestly speaking, somebody asks me that, Ashna, okay, please tell me something about yourself. I'm going to start by saying that, oh, I have lived in two cities majorly. I was born and brought up in Chandigarh. Then I moved to Jodhpur to study law. And then I worked for some part in Delhi during my internships and some part in Bombay. And as luck would have it, now I'm again back to Jodhpur at this point in time. So that is one thing. Another thing I always talk about is my family background, that who all are there in my family, what all do they do, etc. Do I have siblings or not? Post which I speak about my hobbies. So let's say I would say things like I like reading speculative fiction, literary fiction books, etc. I like playing with my cat, and I'm an iced tea enthusiast. So when I say such personal things about myself, which are also appropriate in this setting, they would go on to ask me very nuanced questions. Like I remember one of the partners asking me that, okay, tell us what cultural differences did you see in Chandigarh and Jodhpur? So I could very easily answer that, because definitely I have lived in both cities for major part of my life. So of course that is a very easy question for me, and that it allows me to set the tone, of the interview essentially. Second category is interest area questions. Now again, another interview, that didn't go well for me was when the time that I was asked this question that, okay, what are your interest areas? What subjects are you interested in, etc. What practice areas interest you? I was always a corporate law person through and through initially. However, for some reason, I also said I like arbitration as well. I just, inserted that word somewhere in that answer. And the partner sort of stuck onto that word and made it their life's point to ask me every question only related to arbitration in the next 2 hours of the interview that happened. So please don't make that mistake, the one that I made. So just to look cool, don't add things, in your answers. Make sure that you are actually genuinely interested in that area, and you are sort of saying it as it is. Then moving further, in the interest area related questions, they can ask you questions like, what is your area of law, which law you like the most, what are the most interesting assignments you worked on. Now, if your area is corporate laws, but the interesting assignment that you're pointing out is suppose from criminal laws, of course, there can be a lot of other follow-up questions from criminal laws as well, right? So make sure even your interesting assignments are from your comfort zone, on which you can actually talk endlessly and like discuss endlessly with the interviewer as well. Or like, which is your favorite subject? Again, your favorite subject should ideally be uh, from your interest area as well, so that you have a lot of perspective on how to proceed further with it, right? Okay, then moving further, how to prepare for the HR round? Of course, you collect clues here and there. You see, check the email that who's going to be interviewing you, who's the partner, what all deals they've done recently, for how long they have been associated with the organization. If it's a PPO interview, or even if it's a general normal interview, the HR will always have given their contact details that, okay, you're selected for this interview and these are my contact details for any further clarifications. please make use of that HR contact and call them up and ask them that, okay, who's going to be taking the interview? How long is it going to be? Is it going to be an HR interview or is it going to be a final technical interview, etc. Ask relevant questions from the HR. Then be clear on your whys. You any which ways know that 10%, 15% of the interview is always going to be on your whys. Like, why did you pick up law? Why did you pick up corporate laws? Why did you why do you want to work with us? Why should we select you? Why do you not want to go for higher education, etc., etc.? So just be clear on your whys and practice them, because if you don't practice them, giving impromptu answers is not possible for most of us. We are not like born orators. And if we are not born orators, it definitely calls for some practice beforehand. Check the firm's ideology. You can't go there and always assume that every law firm or every company is going to have the same ideology. So, for instance, let's say if you tell somebody that I can actually work for like 13, 14, 15 hours a day, and also I can like just come on all weekends and I don't care about holidays, etc., and you think that okay, this is going to be a badge of honor and people are going to select me for it, you never know that the firm actually has a policy for work-life balance and they value work-life balance, right? This can actually get you rejected. So make sure you're checking the firm's ideology before finally saying out that answer in front of them, right? Okay, then moving further to the technical questions. Now, technical questions, it's usually the partner from the niche area who's going to be asking you the question. I have till date seen only 2 to 3 firms who have not taken technical questions round from the candidates, but I think all 99% of the firms that I've ever noticed would definitely ask you technical questions. And the technical questions can definitely be asked you along with the HR questions itself. Now, what sort of questions are usually asked in the technical round? Now, of course, your knowledge of the basic law. Basic law meaning, let's say, if you're sitting for a corporate law interview, not knowing Contracts Act is just very basic, and you should have ideally known that, right? So, knowledge of the basic law is very, very important, regardless of the practice area that you're sitting for. Then knowing the knowledge of the resume. So let's say if there's a process in the resume, let's say a private placement process, preferential allotment process, etc. Try and know the step-by-step process and all the documents required for it. If there are any agreements that you've drafted, know all the clauses in the agreements. If there's any research that you mentioned, of course, know the updated versions and the amended versions of that research. So, for example, let's say if you've written in your CV that I've drafted a share purchase agreement, possible questions are that, okay, what is a share purchase agreement? What are the major clauses in a share purchase agreement? How is a share purchase agreement different from a shareholders agreement or a share subscription agreement? And they can also definitely give you certain hypothetical examples and say, okay, so and so situation has happened. Now, how are you going to draft an indemnity clause for it, essentially? So these would be the level of questions that can be asked to you, even at an internship interview level and at, let's say, a fresher or a slightly higher position in the law firm or a company. Now, secondly, let's say private placement is a process, or let's say related party transactions. Now, private placement is a process, so they can ask you all the steps. Related party transactions is a research-oriented questions, so they can ask you an amendment pertaining to it. Now, of course, your law or your knowledge on the law pertaining to the area of interest. Now, for instance, let's say if you are let's say sitting for an arbitration interview, you're sitting for a dispute resolution interview. If you don't know civil procedure code, if you don't know arbitration and conciliation act, of course it's not going to show well, to the interviewer. So your basic law and the knowledge pertaining to it, pertaining to the practice area, should be known by you. Then lastly, questions from the interest area of the panel. Of course, yes, there could be times when the panelist is from a different practice area and they're asking you questions, and you are sitting for a very different practice area. There could be a situation where they might want to ask you questions from their own practice area as well. Now, there are certain pointers for dressing up. I have always seen that people don't dress up really well in an interview. So I have certain pointers for all of you. I'll give you pointers for males and females separately. Full socks, they should not be definitely sports or white or dark, not be white colored socks. They should be dark colors. Navy, charcoal, or gray is really okay. Formal suits, make sure that it's not becoming crinkly, and the trouser and the jacket should always match. If they are not matching, it's a fashion blunder that you're doing in an interview. Shoes, they should definitely be well fitting. Basic black shoe is fine. They should be polished and they should not have very intricate designs very evident out there. And then ties. If you're wearing a tie, don't use power colors. Like don't wear a tie with red color or green or like purple, etc. These are power colors. Wear neutral colors if you can. Now, moving ahead, pointers for females. For pointers for females, of course, trousers again, they should be ironed, shouldn't become crinkly. If it's a skirt, knee length, straight or A-line, that's okay. Dress also, again, everything is knee length. Even if it's a kurta, it should definitely move to that side. If it's a shirt, solid colors, stripes, pastel colors are great. Should not be transparent. And if it's an Indian setting or if it's an Indianized setting, then you can definitely wear a sari or you can wear any other Indian formal clothes. They should just be cotton and should not be flowy. And then if you're wearing any jewelry, make sure it's very, very minimal. It's not colored jewelry, definitely. It should be gold or silver. Now, moving further to certain pointers for an online interview. First is keep your resume handy. Even if it's online, it doesn't matter. Don't keep fiddling with the tabs that are there. Make sure that you have a hard copy of your resume ready in front of you. Close all tabs. Don't open your WhatsApp, Gmail, etc. Everything on the screen because it's anyway, it just might be very much visible to them while you share your screen, and it will create unnecessary noise and confusion. Don't sit in crowded places. Sit in a secluded room if you can with good internet connection. The light should fall on your face and should not be emitting from a source behind you. So it should not be like that I place this light behind me and then they can't see my face. The light source should fall in front of me and on my face, essentially. Wear business formals as much as possible. Don't wear coat formals. Don't wear like black, white, but wear business formals is to as much as possible. Only if it's a dispute resolution interview and you know that the team any which ways wear only coat formals, then yes, coat formals are also okay. Look into the camera while speaking. Don't look into the screen. Look into the camera while you speak to them. Now, certain pointers for offline interviews as well. Please switch off your phone during an offline interview, and even during an offline interview, please switch off your phone to as much extent as possible. Keep a hard copy of the resume and keep multiple copies if possible and circulate it to all the members of the panel. Uh, Footwear should be polished and you shouldn't wear too loud perfumes because everybody was going to get very, very uncomfortable, and then resultantly, you are going to feel uncomfortable while you see them behaving like that. So make sure your perfume is very, very neutral and it's not too loud. Make eye contact with everybody on the panel. Don't just keep addressing to one or two people. It may sort of offend the other people on the panel as well. And then, if possible, practice your handshake. And if not, it's completely fine. Just take the permission to sit down. Now, during the interview, please don't tutor the interview. I have seen a lot of people who've taken part in moot courts, who've published a lot of work, tend to think that they know more than the interviewer. This may not really happen, but even if it's happening, don't try and tutor them. Keep that knowledge to yourself and only address the questions that are asked. Don't cut anybody in the interview while they're speaking because it's rude to do that. Then answer all parts of the question. So if I say, okay, what are your hobbies and what do you do in your free time and what is your family background and why have you taken up law? Please answer and remember all parts of the question and then answer all parts of question. And if you see the interviewers are not really comfortable in how you're answering, they're sort of like, scrunching their face or they're not very comfortable in the answers that you're giving, please try and read the interviewer's expression and then accordingly answer the questions. And don't give idealistic answers. Like, for instance, I recently noticed, in fact, this was a very big thing that happened recently in one of the law schools. The interviewer had asked that, okay, what are your hobbies? And one person said that my hobby is to read judgments in free time, which is definitely not acceptable, and it sort of puts you in a bad light with the interviewer. So make sure that you are sort of not giving any idealistic answers to them. Now, after the interview, of course, what you can do is you can take a follow up with the HR, send a thank you note to them. And then, furthermore, you can ask that, okay, what are the next steps for the interview as well? And you can say, you can ask about questions like, okay, are there going to be any further technical rounds or who's going to be on the panel, etc. Anything which sort of gives you an idea that how long the process is going to take and how you need to prep for the second round, if at all it's going to happen. So there are law firms who go on to take up till 3 rounds, 5 rounds of interview as well. So it's always good for you to send a thank you note to the HR and ask them any sort of follow-up questions on the interview. Now, salary negotiation, I'll quickly run you through. So ideally what I've seen is that for salary negotiation, a lot of people tend to just quote like random figures or like quote a range. Most of you would just go on to say that, okay, I'm expecting anything between, say, 6 to 7 lakhs, or like 8 to 10 lakhs, or like 12 to 16 lakhs, etc. Range should never be quoted, but yes, you should have your range in mind. Now, that range should be decided how, that, okay, for if the higher limit of the range is like that, if the salary offered to me is beyond this figure, I am going to instantly take up the offer without any second thoughts. So let's say the higher range for you is 10 LPA, and the lower limit for you is, let's say, anywhere between 7 LPA, right? That if it goes below 7, I am not going to take up the offer regardless of whatever is being told to me. So the higher and lower limits are now decided, which is 7 to 10 LPA. Now, if it's 10 LPA, the higher limit, make it a little bit higher and quote that number to them. So the range is 7 to 10 LPA, quote 11 LPA in front of them. So now when you quote 11 LPA, of course, they're going to fall anywhere between 7 to 10 LPA. And that's how, when they negotiate with you, that's how it's going to fall off in the range that you have decided for yourself. But if you start quoting a range, they are going to start negotiating with you on the lower spectrum of the range, which is definitely not a good thing to happen to you, right? I hope this is clear. I'll just quickly repeat it, that please never quote a range, because if you quote a range, they're going to start negotiating you from the lower spectrum of the range. Furthermore, make sure that while you have a range in your mind, that range is a higher limit and a lower limit, that anything between the range I'm okay with, anything higher definitely I'm going to consider instantly, anything lower I cannot go below this range. Now, once you have the higher and the lower limit, pick the higher limit and increase it by a few percentage. So let's say if it's 10, make it 10.5, maybe make it 11, etc. Once you've said that, quote that figure. So when the negotiation happens, if they fall within the range that you have in your mind, you can definitely pick up on the offer, right? I hope that is clear to you. Now, some few questions that I would like to take up is that, firstly, introduce yourself. So if somebody asks you for an introduction, I have already discussed, please don't info dump on them. Make sure you're talking about your hobbies, your city, your family background, and a bit about, your professional inclinations. And in your family background, if you have lawyers, then I wouldn't suggest you to talk about family background, because then law firms don't really, or companies don't really appreciate it, because then they feel that, okay, you may actually go ahead and join your family practice after this. But yeah, if you have other people apart from legal professions, you can definitely introduce them in your introduction. Then, why did you take up law? Never say an answer which is a made up answer. Like, don't say things like, oh, I wanted to pick up law because I wanted to change the world. Then why are you sitting for a law firm interview, or why are you sitting for a company interview? So make sure you're giving the real answer, which is something like my real answer is simple, that both my parents are chartered accountants and I did not want to do CA, and both of them wanted me to do CA. So I was like, I'll do anything else but chartered accountancy. So I just picked up law as, the last resort, that okay, anything apart from CA is fine for me. And I just happened to notice law, filled out the CLAT form, and went to NLE Jodhpur after that. So make sure that your answer is like a true answer. Even if you're an accidental lawyer, please say that, but don't make up an answer for it. Why should we select you? Again, please bring up tangible points about your skills, about your competitions that you've taken, about any teamwork qualities that you've derived from any positions of responsibility or team positions that you've had. But to say things like that, I am a hardworking person, I am very punctual, I'm honest, these are very intangible points. I don't think they sit well in an interview setting, right? So make sure your answers are not intangible, they're very, very tangible. Then moving further, why do you want to work with us? Again, if you just sugarcoat this answer and say that, oh, I want to work with you because you're one of the best, you have great clients, great matters, etc., they're going to be like, everybody has the same things, right? So make sure that you say something which is a pivotal point. Like, for example, any of their tech initiatives, anything pertaining to their employment policies, or things pertaining to how the team is structured, what sort of work will be given to you, what sort of client facing responsibilities you have, etc. But anything which is like a a vague thing, that okay, I just want to work with you because you're the best, is not going to sit well with them. Then moving further, do you have any questions for us? You should always have a question. Don't try and be like very, very overly smart and ask them technical questions. It shouldn't look like a reverse interview. Make sure you're asking them only slightly, uh, you know, deliverables oriented question. Like, for example, in one of my interviews, I think at CAM, I asked this question that I recently read Mr. Cyril Shroff's interview, wherein he said that he'll be introducing AI for due diligence in law firms. So, what impact do you think that will have on hiring in the coming years and on my job in the coming years? So, they had a very nice discussion with me over that. So, make sure you're asking something which is a high impact question, and you can subsequently have a conversation with them. Lastly, plans for higher studies. I think I started the session. It makes all sense that I end the session with this question itself, that you should definitely stray away from saying that I have any plans for higher studies. Make sure that you tell them that I have no plans, absolutely no plans of higher studies. Because the moment they realize that you're going to leave at some point, it will obviously backfire. Now, this is also only in context of law firms and other corporate bodies. But if obviously you're giving an academic interview or a policy-oriented interview, of course you have to say at some point that I have to pursue my higher studies that way. So yeah, I think that's pretty much what I wanted to say. I hope all of you found value, and Navjot had to sit through this session as well. So thank you, Navjot, for this. Yes, thank you so much. Navjot, I think you're on mute.
Thank you, ma'am. We truly appreciate your time and the knowledge that you have imparted. Now, I would like to open the floor for the question and answer session. Participants are encouraged to ask their questions to Aashna ma'am.
And
So,
even
ma'am,
if,
here we have the
yes, yes, please tell me.
uh, so first question is, what should we need to add in our CV so that it will lead to high possibility of selection?
I think consistent internships and skill-based internships, along with it, good quality publications.
Okay. So, ma'am, our second question is, what are the required skill set to be eligible for joining corporate law firms, and what are the necessary courses we as a student need to enroll for in order to gain the practical aspect of various laws, for example, contract drafting courses, etc.
So I mean, honestly, I don't think I can comment on any courses because I myself am not creating any. So it'll be a conflict of interest if I start telling you which courses should you enroll for. So I will skip that question, but I will answer the question pertaining to the skills required. So definitely the skill of doing a background check, it's also called due diligence, or your ability to fill out forms on the regulator websites, which is called corporate compliance. Nobody is expecting you to know how to draft agreements, but if you know how to proofread them, cross map them, etc., even that becomes relevant. And lastly, your impeccable research, basically. So any research on the regulator's website or on case laws, etc., or notifications, amendments, circulars that have come out by the regulators, they are definitely a necessary skill to be added to the CV.
Next question. What is the one piece of advice you would give to first generation law students for building a successful future in the legal field?
I mean, I don't think I can generalize any advices. I would just say that before you select your niche, try and explore a few niche areas. Like, don't just go by that, okay, everybody's doing arbitration, I'll just pick up arbitration, or I'll just pick up corporate laws because everybody else is doing. Try and explore a few niche areas in your first 1 or 2 years, 2, 3 years of law school if you're a 5 year law student. And once you've decided that, okay, this is my niche, that is the time to lock in and to actually show consistency in that particular area.
Okay. How can a first year law student start preparing for interviews from now?
I don't think anybody in the first year itself would take a lot of interviews for an internship, but I think your interviews with your own college committees or with journals, etc., that you have in college should serve as a great point for you. Yeah, so I think that, or interview skills are necessary at the end of the day, oratory skills as well. So the more you take part in paper presentation competitions or you take part in moot court competitions, etc., you gather the skill of clarity of thought and structure in your submissions. So I think that's how you can start preparing.
How can we answer the tell me about yourself question effectively in a law firm interview?
So I think we've covered this. We can skip this. We covered it, I think, 2 times in the session today about introduction questions.
How important is networking and internships for cracking interviews in top law firms?
I mean, okay, so networking is definitely important at all levels of your life. It's not like, okay, so if it's, so let's say if you talk about me, I'm not a very highly social person. In fact, I'm a very, very introverted person if you meet me in the real life. So I would never base my work on networking that I do around in the industry. So it's not like that I would do networking only, then I would get opportunities. It's a myth that only if you do networking, would you get opportunities. But yes, as a law student, definitely a lot of opportunities come to you if you are well networked individual. So yes, you should definitely indulge in that. But if you have tailored the question around the fact that, okay, how important is networking from an interview perspective, I don't see how it plays any role, because at the end of the day, you're going to get an interview either on the basis of the rank that you hold in your batch or the skills that you have on your CV and how you've sort of contributed to the team at the law firm for them to finally select you for a PPO interview. So I don't think networking plays any role in interviews. Yes, in terms of getting an internship to some extent, it can play a role. Yeah.
Okay. What if you get asked a question which you have no clue of? Means how to answer that properly.
Okay, so it's a good question if someone's asked this. So, if you don't know this, you can tell them the truth that, okay, I'm sorry, I don't think I've ever been exposed to this concept, or I'm sorry, I have never worked on this issue before. I'm sorry, I'm not able to recall it in the moment. And if you feel you've actually read up on that particular concept, you can actually say, and you worked on it, but you can't recall it now. So you can say, I don't think I can recall it in the moment. But would it be fine if we revisit this question towards the end? So that is also completely okay. So I think I'll take one more
What
question.
are the
Anything which is the most important, you can ask me. Yes.
not being of NLU background, how can I make my career in corporate law?
So I don't think, see, firstly, yes, I'm with you on that, that NLU, non-NLU, and the name of the college, unfortunately, is taken into account by a lot of organizations while they offer internships and jobs to candidates. But I think we start getting into this loophole of being from an NLU or a non-NLU too quickly while we enter into the law school. So I think the first few internships that you do with boutique firms or with mid-level firms, or let's say with any other think tanks or any publication houses, is not governed by how or from which college you are. They're solely governed on how consistent you've been, what skills you're showing onto the CV. So once you have the skills, let's say I told you the skill of due diligence, or let's say reviewing agreements or conducting research, if you're able to show those skills on the CV, then of course you can get the mid-level internships. Once you get the mid-level internships, either they become a launchpad for you to become a credible candidate and to apply to bigger law firms, or you develop your networking skills to the extent that those mid-level internships allow you for some referrals in bigger organizations. But my whole and soul plea to everybody, if like whoever's watching this is, and at any point who would watch this, is that please don't get into the trap of just thinking about an NLU and non-NLU. Yes, it affects your journey at some point in your career, but not right in the beginning. From the first 2 years, 3 years of your career is going to start affecting you. So make use of that time, build your skill set, and then apply to bigger organizations. Yes. So I hope
Thank you,
that
ma'am,
answers
for
the question.
answering.
Right.
In closing, we extend our heartfelt gratitude to Ashna ma'am for accepting our invitation and delivering such an informative session. We trust that the audience found it both interesting and knowledgeable. Thank you once again, ma'am, and we eagerly anticipate the opportunity to host you again. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you.